Well, I've wanted to come here for a long time. I'm so happy I was able to make it this time. Thank you so much for the invitation, and all of you, for having me and for hosting me so wonderfully. It's been such a joy. Well, as you know, this is a spectacular place. It's really Tushita. Oh. And it's also a wondrous community here. You're led by an abbess who is long time so respected in the Tibetan Buddhist community, so respected for her devout practice, for her sincere practice. She's also feisty, so people listen because they respect her so much. She, as you know, is an author as well as teacher. Her books are some of the best on practice. And now this source book that she's done with His Holiness will remain a source book for those Buddhist scholars as well as Buddhist students. And it's just, she's made wonderful offerings. And so you surely know how fortunate you are. And also what I've observed about this community is how pure the practice is, how sweet everyone is. I don't mean it in any offensive way. Nobody is pretending sweetness, but you are genuinely kind, and that shows. The Buddha organized the Sangha because I think because he meant from the beginning that one attains enlightenment, one walks the path of liberation with others in community. And so this is a fine community. I'm so happy to meet you all, to be here. So before I begin a teaching, I found this verse by Nagarjuna, and because I spent a lot of time more recently, last couple of decades, reading Shantideva and Bodhicharya Avatar, I was looking at other texts in connection with this text, and I found Nagarjuna had written a little text that's translated into Chinese and I think preserved that way, and it's now been translated into English, and it's called a Bodhisambhara Shastra. This is by Nagarjuna, and so it's not a guide to the Bodhisattva path, but it's Nagarjuna talking about the provisions that a Bodhisattva need have for the path. So it's the Bodhisambhara Shastra. And in that Shastra, he has occasion to say, how does one distinguish between a true Bodhisattva and a false one? And there's this verse that says, a true Bodhisattva practices and seeks dharma over material gain. Seeks to practice dharma over material gain. Seeks for the happiness of beings. Let's get it right here. Let's read. A true Bodhisattva works for dharma and not material benefit. A true Bodhisattva, then secondly, works only to develop good qualities, works for virtue and not fame. A true Bodhisattva aspires only to liberate beings and not simply to ensure their own personal happiness. And lastly, a true Bodhisattva, while working on all these virtuous activities, does so in secret. So there's an abbreviation of that verse for memory's sake, which says dharma over benefit, meaning one's material benefit, dharma over material benefit, developing good qualities, not fame, the liberation of beings rather than personal happiness in secret. Now, I try to remind myself of that. It's a good shloka, I think, before beginning activities. So I was happy to see that you have the 3 principles of the path and you recite it in some of your liturgy standard. Hey, cool. I think a year ago when I was asked about topics, I said, 3 principles of the path. I taught it in Alicante at one of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa's centers. And we'd had a good discussion for 3 days or so. So I thought, let me do that again. Let's try that again. It's also because those 3 are so broad. I figured, I can't go wrong. A year from now, I could talk about a little renunciation, I could talk about bodhicitta. Hey, let's just say that. It's also a marvelous text, but I thought, I'll be safe if I give that topic. 3 days, 3 topics. But I'm really happy that I did because I got a chance to look at it again, to think about it. Is it good, Rebecca? Oh, okay. All right. Not to worry. So it's good for me to get a chance to look at this again, and I did so primarily with 3 texts, with the 3 principal aspects of the path, Geshe Sonam Rinchins, which is excellent on that. Excuse me. And this little book by Lama Yeshe, from a long time ago, The Essence of Tibetan Buddhism. At one point he's talking about the 3 principles at Vajrayogini, 1982. And then Bodhicharya Avatar, I particularly like this translation, Padmakara translation. Of the 8 or so, 9, if you count those online, translations of this text, the Padmakara group translated it as poetry in meter, so that it's hard for one, I think, to read this just to oneself. You want to read it aloud, and that's exactly how it's used and why it's so popular. Sometimes you see documentaries or something of Tibetan Buddhists, and you see a monk or a nun running through a field shouting at the top of their voices. What are they shouting? Bodhicharya Avatar. Because it's said that even the gnats and grubs who hear about this will attain enlightenment, who hear verses from this text. So it's an actual practice. It's not just about bodhicitta. It's not just about compassion. It is. So when you recite it, you wish enlightenment for beings. Never seen monks and nuns running through the field, shouting at the top of their lungs, Bodhicharya Avatar. It's lovely. So I often ask my students when I'm teaching at university, I say, if it's an intro class, I say, it's important, I think, for you to find some hook that you will carry forth with you and you will remember the essence of Buddhism. So get a shortcut, get a hook. You might not remember all the dates we discuss in this course and all the names we discuss, but get something that will remain with you when you think about Buddhism and what it is. And they come up with various things, they come up with the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And I say, okay, and the Buddha taught 2 things. You can do it in 2s, you can do it in 3s, you can do it. And they come up with some pretty good ones. So, and when they ask me, I say, well, I like these verses, some because Martin Luther King used, and he did study Buddhism. He not only knew about Gandhi, but he studied some courses in Buddhism. But at any rate, there's Dhammapada 5, verse 5. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Hatred is only appeased by love. This is an eternal law. And the translation, the eternal law, is Dhamma there. This is the Dhamma. One I really am happy with, and we just recited it. is Dhammapada, verse 183, which says, do no harm, practice virtue, discipline the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. Do no harm, practice virtue, discipline the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. And there are a lot of threes. Don't get started on the threes in Buddhism. So it's an oral tradition, so it's passed on through memory for the first 300 years. First 110, they're still reciters, famous reciters, dharas, those who held in their memories what was said. So Ananda is a famous dhara for sutra. When you begin the sutras and they begin evam maya shrutam ekasmin samaye, that's, well, when they begin on a certain occasion, thus have I heard on a certain occasion, that's evam maya shrutam ekasmin. I have heard on a certain occasion this, when the Buddha was at Sravasti, when the Buddha was at. And then that is Ananda's voice. That's Ananda's voice. Upali was a great dhara of the Vinaya. In the West we say Vinaya, that's okay. They're both short R's. Vinaya. Oh. Upali was the memorizer and the reciter of Vinaya. Oh. So it's oral. It's an oral tradition, Buddhism, for so long, and people need ways to remember. And you'll know that the canon is divided in a certain way, and that there are 5 or 6 canons, depending upon the language you want to look into. But let's just do some threes. Since we're going to focus on the 3 principal aspects of the path. Let's talk about some threes. The canon is divided into 3 baskets. Tripitaka. Sutra. Vinaya. Abhidharma. For the, particularly for Theravadins, but it's just the ground that Tsongkhapa is going to say all of these vows, all of these foundations are necessary. So, in the Theravada, there are 3 higher trainings, the Adi Shikshas. Yeah, training in discipline, training in meditation, training in wisdom. Those 3. This was another way of also organizing the Eightfold Path. Though Eightfold Path comes to be primarily a teaching for laity in the early years, whereas the 3 Adi Shikshas were meant for the ordained. There are 3 scopes of being, or there are beings with 3 aims. I always thought this one was interesting, and it was also I was at a conference, and I talked about the 3 aims, 3 possible aims of religious beings, and afterwards, the person who's written Curtis Schaefer, who's written about the non-Himalayan hermitist, came up and said, I never had heard that explanation. And I thought, well, is it just a Gelupa way of talking? So we were talking about it. Is it just Gelupa? No, I don't think so. I mean, if you've read some text, Tisha and so on, it talks about these 3 aims. And this is what the 3 aims sort of suggest. There are beings who wish for higher rebirth. That's the sort of lowest aim. Beings who set their goal as higher rebirth. Now, if there are 6 realms, There's a heaven and a hell in those 6. So this particular way of talking about religious beings isn't yet talking specifically about Buddhist beings. There are beings who wish for a higher rebirth. Catholic or Baptist. Heaven or hell is the option. And so we're not even at Buddhism there. And then the sort of middling, right? I don't have good terms for this. It's what texts say, but middling is sort of derogatory. But anyway, it's a good thing. That is the second aim are beings who wish liberation from samsara. Now you've entered Buddhist territory. Because samsara is there, and liberation from it. Don't want any of the realms. Don't want any of the realms. It's still, those realms are all samsaric realms. Huh? Beings who want liberation from that whole model. They want liberation from suffering. They don't want higher rebirth. Those beings, second aim. Then, thirdly, the highest gold that a being can have. Oh, Letitia said this too. The highest aim is the liberation of all beings. The liberation of all beings, and therefore we strive to be able to liberate all beings. Then you see, that can be any religious tradition, that can be Theravadan second, that can be Mahayana highest in that scheme of things. Three scopes of beings. And I recently heard the young Serkon Rinpoche last year in Italy, in Lama Tsongkhapa Institute, say that those 3 could occur in a single individual. It was interesting. We all said, really? And there was discussion afterwards, and he said, oh yeah, people change their minds. I thought, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. So the 3 scopes are the 3 aims of beings. And then usually if you've heard Lamas talk, they might begin by saying, by talking about the 3 vessels. Venerable mentioned, if you're a good vessel last night. So they talk about these 3 vessels, these 3 cups sometimes they say. All right? There's a vessel that, there's a cup and it's cracked. These are the 3 things you want to, when you listen to a teaching, you want to make sure you're a perfect or a vessel that can hold the teachings. So there's a vessel that's cracked. You may have heard these analogies, right? And that means that anything you hear doesn't stay with you, it just leaks through, right? And sometimes there's a vessel that's dirty in some way. So whatever you hear mixes with your own stuff. It doesn't come out pure. You can't hold it. And then so you want to think of yourself, and you want to be mindful, you want to try to clear your mind and get ready to accept Dharma teachings. And that involves making your mind a clear, uncontaminated, non-cracked, I don't know how you say that, vessel to receive the teachings. Those 3 vessels. So this is what I hope to do over the course of the 5 sessions we have. I want to talk generally now, provide some context for this text. I guess I started that, but anyway. Then I want to spend 1 session talking about the Namtar, the life story of Tsongkhapa, and his place how he fit in to 14th century Tibet, because he's the author of our text. And then I want to, if I can, but with your help, definitely, I'll need it. I said, yeah, that's a good place to talk about the three principles themselves, which begin with renunciation, which I think is so difficult. Do you think? So difficult. You can have things, as we were talking about last night, right? But do you have a renounced mind? Let me, do you have a renounced mind yet? It's so difficult. Please, Lama, can I keep my car? But it's the color of the robes, someone told me. Oh. And that gives me a chance then to talk, so it's general context, then life of Tsongkhapa, then renunciation, then bodhicitta, then little on wisdom. So question for you, just to get us engaged. Question for you. How come renunciation's so hard? Why? No, I don't want to ask why it's so hard. We all know that. Though we might give different reasons. It's hard, Why is it first? I mean, this is a great scheme. The three principles of the path. Tsongkhapa really did something here, Renunciation, bodhicitta, wisdom. Huh? Incredible to get it down to that. 14 verses. Anybody can do that, can't they? Whoa! Oh. So first question. Why is it first in that scheme of things? This is really general now. Why is it first? Oh, yeah.
Because without renunciation, you can't begin to do bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, you cannot do wisdom. It has to be first, because you can't get to the next without it.
Okay. And Tsongkhapa absolutely agrees with you. But I'm asking, before Tsongkhapa, why is it listed first in the three? Why is renunciation? Thank you for the answer. It's absolutely correct. Can't do one without the other. It's first. But how come it's first? Why is it that we need renunciation?
I've been living with this for the last 6 weeks.
Seemed like 6 months, but it was only 6 weeks.
Seems like 6 years. And what I've been thinking about is that, frankly, I've been dealing with a lot of attachment, which has devolved into personal distress, which is based on the self-centered thought. And so as I've been trying to unravel these mental states, I've discovered that the crux of the problem or the issue is renunciation. Because in renouncing the attachments and renouncing the self-centered thought, the mind becomes spacious enough to begin to think about other beings and to begin to generate some sense of bodhicitta. And so my thinking as I've been going through this is renunciation does make sense at the beginning, because as we are under the influence of all of the attachment, of all of the self-centeredness, there is no way to really, truly begin to be altruistic or look at how other beings are suffering, because we are so engrossed and involved in our own suffering. And so that's how I linked it back to renunciation, bodhicitta, and purity.
That's a beautiful response. Absolutely. We need that space and room. Absolutely. Wow.
If we don't recognize our life as unsatisfactory, especially how our what we call pleasant experiences are actually unsatisfactory because they're going to change, and that they're not going to continue to bring us satisfaction. If we don't recognize that and we only see the suffering of pain, physical pain or mental pain, then we'll have no reason to make any effort to get out of the cycle of rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just want to keep rearranging our life.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm hoping to make a response afterwards. Yes.
What I was thinking about was what renunciation is. That also having it at the beginning, it gives opportunity to understand what we're actually renouncing, and kind of what people just talked about. We're renouncing the things that bring us more misery, and so and in doing that, understanding what it is, then that will help us also to understand that other beings are suffering the same misery. That all these things that we think are going to bring us happiness, if we really look at it, we're just going in a cycle. So I think that's another reason why renunciation is first, so we can really get a handle on what renunciation is.
Thank you.
For me, renunciation is like cleaning the plate because it's dirty. So you clean it, then you can put the good things like bodhicitta and wisdom on it.
That's a nice image. Okay.
Renunciation begins with me. It gets me started on understanding where I'm at. And then I can start turning around and looking outward at other people. And that's where bodhicitta comes in. But renunciation starts with me and the way I interact with other people. But it has to start with me first. That's why it's first, I think.
Huh. Another comment here. Yes.
So I was thinking of it in terms of the moment when you start questioning whether or not what I'm seeing and feeling and experiencing are actually the way they occur to me, or whether I'm under delusion, whether what I'm seeing, feeling, and hearing are actually different than my experience. In other words, starting to get into the sense of that things are not permanent, things are not independent, and things don't have an essence of goodness or badness in them. And from there comes that sense of, oh, I'm the rat in the wheel. I'm the gerbil in the wheel going around and around, chasing the illusionary piece of cheese out there.
Okay. These are great responses. I respect them all. And I only have a suggestion here. These three principles Tsongkhapa is setting forth, the three principles of the path to liberation. So what keeps us stuck? What keeps us not liberated? Oh, that craving that we have. Oh, craving for things, certainly. So that's how we measure it. Oh, I want to say, I want this book. We read Beatty's biography last week because it came out last week, didn't we? Oh, yes. If I could just get that, I'd be happy. So, craving, attachment, because there's craving, then we grasp. Attachment, I want that. I love you. I love you. Get it? You hear it? I. That's what's important in that sentence. Not that love you, but I love you. Do you get it? But then we think about what keeps us in samsara. You know, what did the Buddha say in the first discourse? Right? What causes our suffering? What is the chief cause? We have to find that cause and eliminate the right one. Oh, what is the most palpable one? First sermon says, Trishna, craving. What is renunciation? Trying to let go, dear, of those cravings. Trying to turn away. So it has to begin here, doesn't it? It has to begin there. Oh, that's what keeps us trapped. Oh, desire. I have this. When there was such a store, I'm sorry, I'm going to often talk about shopping. When there was a store called Circuit City, some of you know that. Well, on Tuesdays they come out with the new CDs. Tuesdays. So I would prepare for Tuesday. And I, like Young Rinpoche, I like some hip hop. Chalk it up to my culture. I like it. Some, not all. So on Tuesdays, I try to, I'd figure out what was the latest thing. I have to have the newest, the greatest, the best. But, I put a little effort into it. I said, well, I like Tupac, okay. And there was this backup group called Outlaws. And I remember very distinctly one Tuesday, going up to get the latest Outlaw CD. I went to the store, went to the rap hip-hop section. There was no CD there. There was no Outlaw CD there. So I must have been showing my frustration because someone came up to me and said, ma'am, can I help you? And I said, I'm looking for this CD, but I don't see it here. And he said, well, maybe we sold those. And I'm going, no, says the store has two right now. Where are they? I'm so, talk about craving some desire. So he said, maybe someone has it in their hands and they're gonna buy it. It might be in the store. So I must have been tapping my feet or something. So I hear from one corner back of the store, somebody says, got one! It's like, I didn't know I had caused such a disturbance. Got one! I said, good. To the manager, I said, good. You see, I was proven correct, everything in that one instant. And I had it. And when he delivered it into my hands, and I had it, what do you think was the very next thought I had? Yes, there was that pride and there was that glee, it's mine. But in the next nanosecond, my mind went on to the next thing. I wonder if they have. Don't we do that? We go, okay, got this now. Got this now. Huh? This is how samsara, this is how grasping works, right? Keeps us in there. Desire is the most palpable cause of samsara. Our minds work that way. Got to practice a little renunciation so your mind doesn't work that way. It put a break in that. It's the most palpable. Got the CD, happy for a nanosecond, next nanosecond, wondering about the next thing, Oh. So that desire, that craving makes its way into the there is a cause of suffering. We learned, we study Buddhism, and we learn that, that desire and hatred both are generated, those negative emotions are generated because of ignorance. That's why wisdom's always at the end of any of the schemes, right? Wisdom's at the end because we're trapped basically by ignorance, right? But because we're ignorant, we go after happiness by seeking, and we go after it in the wrong way. One, we think things will make us happy. We think relationships will make us happy. And we're just spinning our wheels in the wrong way. We need to at least try to practice letting go a little, turning away a little. Give it up, Jan. You don't really need the latest Outlaw CD, do you? Mm. So a path to liberation, I think, ought rightfully begin with, as this one does, with dealing with, attacking, focusing on what will have us lessen what causes us to be non-liberated. And so, renunciation is there. It's essential. We can have bodhicitta. Sometimes Mahayana texts say enlightenment is the perfect balance of wisdom and compassion, like the wings of a bird. You have to have both wisdom and compassion. Otherwise, compassion, falls into pity. You got to treat beings equally. Otherwise, you assume the superior. I'm going to help that person. That's not compassion. Suffering with is okay. I'm going to a different thing, but certainly you have to have the basis of one. All of your comments were absolutely appropriate. Seems to me. One is the basis of the other. One is necessary for the other. And so it doesn't make any sense to talk about compassion if you might change your mind in the middle. I'm going to have compassion for all these people except this one. She didn't really like me for whatever reason, I want to take all these beings to liberation except this one. So it's good that it starts with renunciation. I'm not saying I know a lot about it, but it makes sense to me. And one of the things, as I studied Buddhism for all these decades, one of the things I can say with some certainty is that, maybe like lawyers, I've heard from friends who've studied the law, they say, first year, they wipe away all your rational thinking. And then they show you and try to convince you of the beauty of the law. It sounds like brainwashing to me. But what I like about studying the Dharma is that it seems to me that no matter where you enter, the system makes sense. The teachings make sense. I love that. I love that. So Tsongkhapa puts renunciation first. There's a reason for that. Tiga. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, we were teenagers together. He was a little older than me, but we were skinny in those days. Lama Zopa was always skinny in those days. I mean, he had TB, and he was always really skinny. And he was always the yogi. And I was always sort of the rowdy. But Lama Yeshe was kind. He was kind to me. He still held me dear, even though I'd go off and was rowdy. Anyway, 2 stories came to mind as I looked at Venerable. 2 things about Lama Zopa. Remind me if I forget the second one, okay? Lama Zopa always wanted to meditate. So in those early days at Copan, when there were just 2 people living there, and sometimes Piero, who took robes, Piero would wander through, so he'd been there earlier. But my 2 friends, Randy and Robbie, lived with the Nepali family, Ram, and just on the other backside of Copan. And I was living at the Gelugpa Monastery down in Boda. I'm sort of jealous of my friends because they had a shorter walk to Lama Yeshe's. Oh. And Lama Yeshe would walk past, and these are just the early days. This was before the Copan courses. Lama Yeshe would come by, and Lama Zopa would try to hide, make himself invisible, because he just wanted to be the yogi all the time, and he didn't want... And Lama Yeshe would come through, and he'd just see him, and he said, "You're going to have to teach. You're going to have to teach. Zopa, you're going to have to teach." And Lama Zopa would go, Lame, please no. Please no. Please no. We know that Lama Zopa became the main teacher at the Copan courses, right? And they worked it like a team. It was a great team, you know. Lama Zopa would tell people every single day, 29, 30 days, if you mix Dhamma, if you mix Dhamma with non-Dhamma, it's not Dhamma. It's not Dhamma. If you mix Dhamma with non-Dhamma, it's not Dhamma, right? So you'd see these people, once the course has started, and I'd go up and Lama Zopa would be teaching them, you know, you'd see people. You know, it's impossible. You can't practice Dhamma. You can't practice it because we know we're all sitting here and we know we all mix it. And Lama Zopa saying, if you mix it, it's not Dhamma. And then Lama Yeshe would come in on the last day. You know, everybody's sinking. They can't stand another day, you know. It's impossible, this Buddha's Dharma. Lama Yeshe would come that last day, and he'd look out over the crowd, and he'd smile, and he'd say, "Oh, you just do the best you can, dear. That's enough. You do the best you can." And then, everybody was, you know, I saw these transformations, you know, over the years. It's just incredible. I said, boy, do they work it. Lama Zopa still teaches that. He still teaches that. Winsopa is still one of his favorite siddhas. Lama Zopa is very much committed to not mixing the 8 worldly dharmas, and thinking you're practicing Dhamma. It's amazing. Now, the second story, the lie and things up. I don't have any gossip on your Venerable Abbess. But I'm reminded of the fact that when I was first there, I was saying Lama Zopa and I were sort of the same age. Lama Yeshe would tell me, he'd say, go keep Lama Zopa company. It's my job. Go keep Lama Zopa company. What the heck did that mean? How do you keep him company? He's always meditating. Lama Zopa was always. And Lama Yeshe, go, keep him going. Go. Which meant that I would go into Lama Zopa's room, and Lama Zopa would be meditating on the bed there. And a few minutes would go on, so I'd go in, I'd sit down on the floor, keep him company. And every now and then, Lama Zopa would look at me, and he'd ask a question. And the question would always be, have you met Tochi Rinpoche? Have you met? And before I could say, well, no, but I'm... Another 10 minutes. Have you met? No. And this would go on. And then he would say, he is a perfect Lama. He is a perfect Lama. That one is a perfect Lama. Perfect. So now I see Lama Zopa and I say, Lama, what kind of way was that to gossip? You think every Lama is perfect. Not even a hint of... Nope. So, I'm sure you are also absolutely perfect. That's how he gossiped. And he laughs now. He just howls when I say that. What kind of way was that to gossip? You thought everybody was perfect. Oh, he laughs. And because I guess they are. Absolutely. Tika. So Lama Zopa could really talk about renunciation, and he did, and he does, and it's really part of him. So whenever anyone asks me, like, do you practice? I have to say no. Because I've met someone who practices. Oh. Yeah, he practices. Yeah. So, if we mix Dhamma with non-Dhamma, it's not Dhamma. This is really tough. It's tough stuff. But luckily, fortunately, we can practice a little. Renunciation we can try. And fortunately, Buddhism offers methods. Lama Yeshe would say method. There are methods. You're not just thrown out there. Yep, renounce. Okay. What does that mean? Fortunately, there are methods. And here you can learn those. And I know what a good teacher you are. I mean, you can learn the Lamriam, the ideas of stages of the path that will help you generate renunciation. And there are methods. And that's a good thing. I think it takes methods because it's sort of a hard job. But then, of course, Lama Yeshe will always come and he says, it doesn't matter, dear. You have many things, wonderful things. It's okay. The things are not what matters. You're having a renounced mind is what matters. Renunciation is really an inner thing. Lama Yeshe would say, it's not an outer thing. So how does one give up craving? What holds us in samsara? Try to develop renunciation. There are methods. Nagarjuna said went to the land of the Nagas and brought back the Prajnaparamita text. That may mean historically that he went to South India for a time. What's the joke? The way I said it, or what? What? I'm tickled. It may mean historically he went to the south. What was happening in the south of India at the time? There was Sophia cult. Oh, why does he come back with Prajnaparamita, the goddess? The Greeks were there in South India. There was a Sophia cult. Some say that's where he was. I didn't mean to start a controversy here. Just because where I'm aiming is that these Prajnaparamita texts that Nagarjuna came back with, well, maybe he went down underneath, and he talked to the Nagas there, who were the keepers of wisdom, and he conquered them. Arjuna, the Nagas. So he got their wisdom from them. That's one way of looking at it. Maybe he just went to South India. It's okay. Oh, but he came back with lots of text. Weighted down. These animals were weighted down with text. Prajnaparamita text, can you imagine? Wisdom text, heavy. The adjective is guru. The feminine is guruvi. Heavy. I love it. Groovy. Guruvi. Feminine Sanskrit. Guruvi. That's heavy, man. That's heavy. Some of the Prajnaparamita texts are in 125,000 shloka. Some are in 100,000 shloka. These are big texts. Some are in 8,000 verses. Some are in 300 verses. Some are just the Heart Sutra. One page. We're going to recite it together at some point. But what I'm thinking now is I'm just thinking of the amazing ability of Tsongkhapa to get this whole path of liberation into these 14 verses. Now, Tsongkhapa, we know, also did Lamrim Chinmo, Nagrim Chinmo. These were bigger texts. But then, condensed down into 14. So, let's finish Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna wrote 2 letters that are really key. But I'm just amazed by the creativity of Buddhist philosophers of old who could condense the teachings down into such a nutshell. So that in any Mahayana institution, you walk into a Japanese temple in someplace in Hawaii or in Japan, a Mahayana place, usually someone there, whether you see them or not, is reciting the Heart Sutra. Some Mahayana places, many of them, have an established practice of having that sutra be recited, always. It's like Bodhicharya Avatar. It brings blessings whether or not beings understand it. So Tsongkhapa, whose life I hope to talk just a little bit about our next session, was a phenomenal being who managed to get to really think about it, had studied broadly, and managed to get down to 14 verses. What is essential for practicing the path to liberation? Sometimes people have translated this text as the three principles of the path, P-L-E-S. And often, most often, it's translated, Son mentioned here, translates it principle, and then you have to add something else, principle aspects. You could say principle. Oh, but these terms seem to be different, right? One is an adjective, for example, one is a noun, right? Principle, L-E, is a noun. Principal is an adjective. These are the chief ones. And in this case, it doesn't matter how you translate it. I think, oh, that's clever. So it's either way. It's the chief one. It's the chief thing necessary to practice the path to liberation. These three are really important. They're not only chief, main, they're the ones. Practice these three. That's enough, dear. Not easy, but condensed into the whole path. This is all you need. Then I think I'll stop. You know, one never knows. These notes. Oh. I have a student, his name was Lorne Ladner. He's written a number of books, psychologist inside of D.C. Oh, he was a student at Wesleyan. Went up to Milarepa Center and got involved with the Lamas. And you know, Lorne Ladner has written 2 books with Lama Zopa in particular. Lorne and I have kept in touch, and you know, he's a professional, he's well established, he's a really kind human being, lovely. So Lorne says to me, you know, in all the times I've ever heard you, and I've sat in a lot of your classes, but when I've heard you other places, even if it's the same topic, you never talk about the same, you never say the same thing twice. You can take that as a compliment. But it meant a lot to me that he said that. So things come up differently with different people, and so I really would like to hear what you're thinking. If you have any comments or you have any questions thus far, I'd like to invite those now.
Thank you, Professor. I have a question about craving for liberation of yourself and others. Could that become an obstacle to renunciation if you see it in the wrong way?
Well, yeah, if you're still craving, if it's still desire, if it's a badge you want, hey, I'm enlightened. But sometimes some texts say the wish for nirvana, see, but they say wish, not craving. The wish for nirvana is the one wish it's okay to have. These are Theravada text, right? You gotta have, you're after something. So, and you respect it enough, and you know, it's a good thing. And so you wish for that. And when I said something similar to Lama Yeshe, you know, he said, don't worry about it. When you can do, you won't ask this question. Not to worry about it. You know, it's sort of speculative in a way. I don't mean any harm. It's good that you ask. You know, but it's, you know, like, well, that's a, you know, craving is something I shouldn't do. So even I shouldn't crave for nirvana. This is not so helpful, you know. So
Yeah,
he would say, let it go.
I've just heard it talked about, like, if you're holding on to anything, just that grasping, you know, and also having a dualistic viewpoint of nirvana samsara, that can become an obstacle itself. So, you know, I have read maybe some Zen texts that say, you know, throw out all of these distinctions.
If you see the Buddha in the road, kill him.
Yeah, something
Zen.
to that effect.
Yes. Yes.
So even get rid of this desire for liberation, that can become fettered.
Yes.
Well, it's very difficult. It seems you have to hold both viewpoints
at the same
I
time.
hear
I mean,
you.
clearly you have to practice, you have to purify your mind.
Yeah.
You're in samsara, but at the same time, you can't use it as another way to hook yourself.
I like that in Sonam Rinpoche's book, he doesn't say renunciation. He says the wish for liberation. It's more positive, no? Oh, and Nagarjuna says, between samsara and nirvana, there's not the slightest thread of difference. It's not. It's the same thing. You're not going to disappear and be beamed up onto, when you attain enlightenment. Whoops, she was sitting there and now she's gone. Which is what some of my students worry about. They worry about disappearing. Now, they worry about disappearing because they want to be loved and they're thinking, I don't want to give this up because I want someone to love this, They think they're going to disappear. You're absolutely right. But Lama Yeshe would have said, don't worry so much about it. Have the wish for enlightenment. Have the wish for liberation. Have the wish to liberate all beings. And therefore, you wish for liberation. And you do. Maybe you have to hold them. Maybe you have to hold them together. But you want to, the reason I think he says let go so much is, really, that's what you have to do. Let go. Huh? And Nagarjuna meant, I think, that it's not any of the things, Samsara is not a place. It's in the mind, right? Seeing these same things with attachment is samsara. Seeing them without attachment is nirvana. Huh? It's just, it's just that little in the mind. Just the way you see. This is why Tibetans say tawa, the view. It's just the view. There's no difference between samsara and nirvana. It's just your view. Drop the attachment. There's nirvana. So simple, isn't it? Sort of. Huh? But I rejoice that there are all these methods for helping us to get to that view. Different methods. I'm not sure I helped. I tried.
I like thinking of it as a wish for liberation. It's an interesting way to rephrase it. But wish, it's just, maybe I'm very unskillful at this stage, so I'm very cautious of latching on to, wishes and wanting it to be a certain way and having goals, like very concrete goals.
Mm-hmm.
I can just see that becoming another block to, my development.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just how to skillfully I've heard people talk about aspirations, and that's different than having a goal or some kind of expectation. That's a skillful way to do it. But yeah, I just trying to think of how to avoid some kind of pitfall where, like seeing samsara and nirvana as concrete entities that I need to, get out of. I just worry about that.
You need to just change your mind.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right,
Samsara,
that's the problem,
nirvana.
of course.
Yeah. Well, but that's why we practice. Meditation is good for that. There's a path to liberation with methods. We should rejoice in that. Renunciation. As much as we're mindful and we're aware and we see we're really holding on firmly to that, then try to let go. Let go. That's renouncing too. Renouncing that rigid, fixed. We do it about ourselves. Friend asked me out to this movie. Oh, I don't like those kind of movies. We got a real fixed idea of what we like, who we are, don't we? Oh, yeah. I don't like that kind of stuff. It's like I'm just one thing. This one thing doesn't like that kind of thing, and da-da-da. So you try to let go a little of that, All that. That's what we want to sort of ease up on.
Just more of a comment, I think. I was just thinking how renunciation is not necessarily unique to Buddhism. We were watching this really interesting movie, The Island. It was not a documentary. It was a movie about a Russian monastery on an island, and the monks there, especially this one particular monk, was kind of a mad hermit kind of monk who was part of the monastery, but kind of off on his own. But he helped the abbot, let go of his attachments to these boots. But I guess my point is there's some kind of universal appeal to renunciation in the sense that it helps us let go of our attachments, no matter I guess no matter whether we're Buddhist or not, and
Yes.
cause less suffering, I suppose.
It's helpful to make space in the mind. And initially, it's good to be able to take yourself apart. And when you, and I'm making an excuse for myself. I was going to say, when you gain a little, then you can go back into the world. But that's just an excuse for myself. That's just an excuse. Oh, we all like samsara. Oh, we would give it up. I don't have a red car. I have a car that's not environmentally sound. Environmentally. It's not good. I wanted it all my life. I got it. I experienced wishlessness when I got it. It's a candy apple red Jag. 2004. Year before they stopped making the big bodies. Wanted one my whole life. Got it. Experienced wishlessness. I did. That was an interesting experience. That was, wow, this feels good. I don't want anything else on this highway. All these cars I see, I'm in the one I wanted. It was great. I still like that car. Please don't ask me for that car. I'm just, you can have it. Oh, maybe. It is good, and religious traditions recognize it, to take yourself away from the constant distractions so you have space to think about what's important. Absolutely, it makes sense that numerous traditions know about that. There are distractions. And there's I think Bob Thurman says, from the time we wake up in the morning, our sole orientation is from the eye. What a terrible thing. But we don't know anything else. Wouldn't it be nice? Might it be nice to not feel that burden? I think when the Buddha attained enlightenment, man, you put down that burden of I don't see how he stayed on earth. I don't see how he just didn't levitate forever. It's like the burden of I is really a burden. To think only that conceit of I, that is such a heavy weight. I'm not saying I don't have it. Boy, do I have it. I'm a scholar. I want to write things. I want to get good reviews. All that. But it's a burden. And just to put it down for a while, which any of these traditions, the Russians, can experience a little of that. What a wonderful thing. This is happiness like we don't know happiness, just to put it down. Wow. So it's not like the Buddha wanted us to be unhappy. He just wanted us to taste a little real happiness. Yeah?
Thank you. You've really gotten me thinking about lots of different things. I did read a book. I just want to share a comment about some very early Buddhist women, so Theravada practitioners. And there was poetry. And there's an analogy that they kept using in their poetry. And it was talking about the heat of clinging and the coolness of nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
And that I love that way that they talk about it.
thirst is quenched.
Yes, my
And
thirst
cool.
is quenched. There's
Mm.
there's lots of this stuff, and so I look forward to coming and spending some time here at Sravasti, just because I can maybe see over the edge just a little bit of I can give up my normal clinging for what I don't know, fill in the blank, right? Because that's not here. My old life is off, and I can just start cool.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. You provide that space. What a gift. That's a gift.
That in terms of renouncing the 8 worldly concerns, we talk about attachment, but the other side of that is aversion. And so one of the things that I have been contemplating or trying to practice in terms of lessening that attachment on the other side is working with the aversion. Because for some reason, my mind seems a little bit more prone or less resistant to work with the aversion than with the attachment. And since they are both the other side of the same coin, I think if I work on the reducing the aversion, that would also work on the attachment. Would you have a comment to that?
My comment is just to repeat that I rejoice in the fact that it said that Buddha taught 84,000 different methods. So we're different one from the other. That's why it's good to have a teacher who knows us and who can prescribe the right medicine. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. It's good. Ignorance is the source of both desire and hatred. So having a teacher who can give you methods for your main, this is how Tibetan Tantra works, your main issue. What's the main samsaric illness you suffer with? That teachers can diagnose that. It's precious. So I mentioned a little bit about my life and finding Lama Yeshe. One of the first months I was at Kapan, Lama Yeshe was on his way to, he had a little towel over his hand, his toothbrush. He was on his way to the bathroom on the other side of these. There were 2 rooms and a bathroom up at Kapan. The Zena was, of course, in the astrologer's house. So I was just outside, around in the morning. Lama Yeshe came out on his way to brush his teeth. And he looked over at me and he says, pride and humility, daughter, those are very tough. And then he went on to brush his teeth. I was like floored, diagnosed me perfectly, right? On his way to brush his teeth. Because I wanted to know how you can be humble and yet dignified in the world. Not be trampled on, be yourself, be happy about all those things. He was on his way to brush his teeth. Pride and humility, daughter. Tough. That conflict, tough. Brush his teeth. So teachers are amazing. And there are methods for us, each one of us, no matter how different we are. Basic problem is one. The basic problem is one, right? No matter how it manifests. Right?
I guess it's more of a comment, but the teachings that you can have things and it's okay if you don't have craving or attachment to them. But then, for those of us in the room who would be the most able to do that, they have the least amount of things.
In other words, the monastics have the least amount of things, though they would probably be the most capable of having a lot of things without attachment to it. So it seems like for a layperson, that it's a lot trickier than that. If even the monastics won't have a lot of belonging.
I don't know. You could probably ask some of these monastics. I mean, the idea is to have a renounced mind. I think that's difficult for all of us. Huh? It's not about the things at all. It's not about the things. It's having a renounced mind. Aha, they can, okay, they can tell you.
You can get attached to a pencil after you've given away your whole household of stuff to move here. That was one thing I learned years ago. And we have to work with this on an annual basis when we change rooms. It brings up so many things for people. Some of them it might be material things. Some of them it's comfort. Some of them it's health. Some of them it's just so many things come up. It's a big, I guess it goes back to what you're saying, Summer. It's a vacation for you to come here, but when you live here, these things actually, the burdens become such a great suffering that you can't do anything but give them up. Seriously. In this environment, these things that are burdens that you're just getting away from, you bring here, and then there's so much suffering associated with them living in this kind of environment that you have no choice but to give them up. It's not like you give them up willingly. You fight tooth and nail. But the suffering is so great and the relief is so much worth it that you just, you're done with certain things because the pain is too much. That's my experience.
Good.
And it doesn't have to be room changing. It can be attachment to ideas and opinions. And in this community, we've got some of the strongest minds, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, the strong, happy mind is important for practice, but that strong mind can also be, I want one, I want one, I want it. My idea is best. Everybody's got to go along with me. So once again, you've got that flying in your face all day long. And after a while, as Venerable Tarpa said, the misery that it causes, the attachment to be right and the attachment to ideas. So it's not even about the physical stuff. After a while, for some of us, gets kind of put down. But boy, when it comes to ideas, comes to praise, aversion to criticism and feedback, it's like the big bag, the big piece of luggage that has the heavy sticker on it with the bright orange color. And so, but as Venerable Tarpa said, the misery, because what happens is that when you see your attachment in a community that's this close, is you see how your craving affects the harmony of the community. I mean, it doesn't just become you can go and distract yourself and get what you want. If you're craving something, whether it is food, idea, a piece, an object, the whole community feels that craving, even though it's yours, because we're just so darn close. And the harmony is so precious, but it also has a little bit of a fragility to it. And we're so interconnected here that if one person's off the rails, the community feels it. And so our practice as a community is then to how to hold our own minds and address the issue within a community context, or just to support so we can work our way through that misery. But it's so affective when you're as close as we are. And so little by little, as the years go on, you see the community really working with these core cravings, these core aversions, because they can disrupt the Dharma and how the process of harmony works.
So, okay, see, it's really a vacation when you leave here, right? Because here you have to work on those issues. Can't get away. Oh.
Yeah, that's my addition. It's not like then when you get it, you put it down. You have to give it up one silly, teeny tiny idea at a time, minute by minute. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't.
So to follow up with my vacation comment, then I appreciate coming to the Abbey because it shows me there's a different way. I get some space because yes, it's wonderful. It's a beautiful place and it's lovely people and it is a vacation and I look forward to it every year. But what I take away from my vacation is that I've learned that it's possible to give things up, and I've taken that back into my life, and it's allowed me to buy a new car and have my husband drive it the second day. And he parked it in a space that he's always told me, park it away and be very careful. And he's given me this lecture for 30 years. He parked my new car, it got a scratch. And he couldn't tell me about it for an hour, and he just suffered. And he told me that. And at first, I had this, not that this car was scratched, but that I had to listen to him lecture me for 30 years. And he got the scratch. But in that space, I had a little bit of space. It was amazing. And I felt that, just kidding me? And then it was like, okay, it's going to get scratched someday. I'm really glad it was you. You what? Not me. But, it was okay. So I wouldn't have had that reaction.